Hi friends, welcome to part 2 of our baby shower capsule, sew along. And this is the part where we're going to be working on the baby gown and the wet bag patterns. These are super easy, super cute. Oh, and the baby hat too, because we're gonna sew that one as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so today for the baby gown, I am going to be making the straight version. This is the one that doesn't have the snaps in the front. If you want to make the one with the snaps in the front, you can check out our other video, the baby gown video. That one actually's got the ones with the snap if you needed help with that. So let's go ahead, and first thing we're going to do is attach our shoulders. So I'm going to match up my right side of my fabric, put it right side up, and then the right side of my other side, put it right side down. So right sides together, the front and the back. And we're gonna match up those shoulders, and we're gonna go ahead and sew. So I'm just gonna go real quickly and sew that over on my machine. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to grab my neckband, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm gonna fold it wrong sides together and steam it. I'm gonna give it a memory crease. I find that it's easier for me to go ahead and steam my neckband. That way once I sew it on the round, it's easier for me to fold again, because then I'm gonna open it, but that crease is still there. I'm gonna fold it right sides together, and we're going to sew that neck, that short little area right there, raw edge. So we're gonna go ahead and sew that, and I'm gonna sew the shoulders, and then we'll come back to continue working on it and finish it up. Alright, our shoulders are sewn. I'm just clipping these threads to get them out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and start with my neckband. We're going to match up those shoulder seams, go to the front, and then go to the back. And I do like a little clip, nothing super big. It's just a little tiny clip that helps me to know where I'm going to be attaching. So I'm quartering it, and I'm gonna touch that front and that back and go to the sides. For this size, it's not that big of a difference from the shoulder seam to the actual where I'm supposed to do my quarter, but for some sizes it will be a bigger difference. So you always want to make sure that you find those quarters. That way that way it's gathered evenly. I mean, it's stretched out evenly, and you don't have a neckband that's all stretched out and wonky afterwards. Now I'm gonna grab my neckband, and I'm gonna fold it wrong sides together over that memory crease we created earlier. And that's when it comes in handy that you created that memory crease, because it makes it easier to fold. Some fabrics are super stubborn to fold when they're on the round like this, so this always makes it easier. I'm gonna go from that back and go to the front and mark it. This is how I'm marking my quarters on my neckband. And I'm also gonna put a clip here. The reason why I do that is because I'm gonna clip it to my bodice anyway, so I'll just have it on there already. I'm gonna match the front and the back, and I'm gonna go to my sides, and those are my quarters. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna match up my quarters of my neckband with my quarters of my bodice, and we're gonna do that right sides together. I start in the back is where I put my that seam right here. And you say, how can I tell which one's which one's the back and which one's the front? Usually if you hold it by the shoulder seams, you can see that the front is lower than the back, and that's how you'll be able to tell. And just pin those to the neckband, matching those quarter points. Then we're gonna go over to our serger or sewing machine. I'm using a serger right now, but you can use a sewing machine with a zigzag stitch, and we're going to stretch our band to fit our bodice, and we're just gonna sew those together all the way around. While I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to attach my sleeves. That way we can do it all at once over on the serger. I'm gonna grab my sleeve, I'm gonna fold it in half and find that top and mark it. And that is where I'm going to place that seam right here on the shoulder. I'm gonna place it right there where I marked that half, and I'm putting them right sides together. And then I'm gonna go down one side along that raw edge of your arm side and pin. And when you're sewing, you wanna make sure that these are all even right here together. So just put one pin right there in the middle or clip, and then I'm gonna go over to the other side. I have some people ask me if I prefer pins to clips or which ones do I prefer. I thought I was not gonna like clips because I used pins for so long and I was kind of really used to them. But clips help a lot, especially when you're sewing with knits, because they grip. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word grip. They grip the fabric really nicely, and so when I'm sewing, it doesn't move as much as it does when I'm using a pin. Now, I will use a pin for more of the wovens mostly, and then obviously when I'm sewing inside, for some reason, I obviously need a pin. But honestly, clips have been great for me. So I'm gonna do the same for the other sleeve, and then we're gonna go sew the neckband and the sleeve on. When I'm sewing my neckband, I like to start at the back where the seam is, and I always face my neckband up and match up to that raw edge. I get it right under my foot, and then I like to turn my needles in so that they're stuck on there. And then I'm gonna go to that first quarter point. I'm gonna grab my neck and my bodice and my neckband and match them evenly, pull on my neckband a little bit so it's all even and sew. And then remove that next quarter point and line them up again evenly, and then continue to sew, and then continue to do that same thing all the way around the whole neckband, taking your time. I am super loving this. So this is cotton lycra and French terry. So the sleeves are cotton lycra. I'm gonna go ahead and steam my neckband while I'm talking to you all. My sleeves are cotton lycra and my neckband is cotton lycra, and then my bodice is French terry. It seems like a baby French terry because it's very soft. I got it from Hobby Lobby. It was on sale, and I actually made a top as well out of this. Of this fabric. The sleeves are made out of it, and I love it. It's super soft. So I thought this would be perfect. Okay, so I am actually also loving this because it's coming together super quick. So if you have a last minute baby shower and you're like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Honestly, perfect gift. Super, super quick and easy. We're gonna go ahead and now sew those sides together. We're gonna start right here at the arm and go all the way down, and then also go all the way up the sleeve. So we're just sewing those sides together, right sides together. Alrighty, we're almost to the end. Here's my bottom of my romper, of my gown. We're gonna go ahead and fold a 1/4 inch first, and I'm just gonna go ahead and steam it all the way around. And then after that, we're gonna go ahead and fold a 1/2 inch up. So a 1/4 inch, and then all right, what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along the edge, the inside edge. We're going to do an 1/8 inch top stitch, but I'm going to leave a gap, 1 to 2 inch gap right here where we're going to insert that elastic after we're done sewing it through. And then I'm also going to go ahead and hem my sleeves while I'm at it. Just clip this. At a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And what I'm going to be using for both the hem and the top stitching right here is my cover stitch. But if you don't have a cover stitch, no worries. We can just use a zigzag stitch on our sewing machine. Actually, this bottom piece you can just do with a straight stitch because it is wider than the baby and it's gonna cinch in, so you won't be stretching it out. That's the thing that you worry about when you're doing a hem. You don't want to do something that's too tight, and as soon as you put it on and stretch it out, it will pop the stitch. But I think, you know, with this down here, it won't stretch, as you know, you're gonna have elastic that will encase it. So you would be fine with a stretch stitch right there. But I would use a stretch stitch on the sleeves. So let's go do that. Almost done, and it's looking super cute. I am loving it. Look at this. How cute. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to grab our elastic and we're going to go right in that area. I'm using a safety pin. We're going to go all the way around and tuck that in. All right, make sure your elastic is nice and tucked in and straight. Then when we get out here, I'm going to grab my 2 elastics, and I'm going to right side put them together and zigzag stitch them together close. Then I'm gonna tuck them in and top stitch that little area that I left open. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, now time for our hat. What we're going to do is we're gonna grab our liner and our outer, and we're gonna grab both liners and put them right sides together. And honestly, this will be a reversible hat. So it really doesn't matter which one's your liner and which one's your outer, except for one of them will have a little bit of a top stitch edge where you will turn the whole thing around. So that's why you decide first which one's your outer and which one's your liner. We're gonna grab our hats and we're going to sew all the way around, but on your liner, you're going to leave a gap where you're gonna turn them around once you sew them all together. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin and sew. And I said sew all the way together. I mean the top, not the bottom. So don't sew the bottom closed, just go around the top, leaving a gap on your liner, and just sew all the way around on your outer. All right, now we're gonna turn one inside out and we're gonna fit it right through into the other one. And we're going to sew this bottom edge together, right sides together. All right, so we have finished off our hat. Now we're gonna go find that little hole that we left, and we're carefully going to turn our hat around. Pull it out. Make sure you pull out all your edges really nicely. Right now, if you wanna steam those edges so it's nice and rounded and beautiful. And then we're gonna go ahead and top stitch that closed. You can do a top stitch with your sewing machine, or you can hand stitch it, however you wanna close that gap so that it's nice and closed. And then once that is closed, we tuck that back in and we have our hat, and it's double-sided. So you could wear it this way or you could wear it this way. Either way you want to wear it. Super cute. Time to work on our wet bag, and we're gonna get right to it. I am going to be using a zipper foot on my sewing machine. This is what my zipper foot looks like. It's nice because this little edge keeps me from getting on top of the zipper, so it like bumps me out, but it still lets my needle go all the way pretty near it without me breaking it over my zipper. So that's what I'll be using. And this pattern is made so that we can use any kind of zipper size that is bigger than the actual bag, because then we'll just trim the edge, whatever is left over of the zipper when we're done. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our fabric, and we're going to put our zipper right side on top of our fabric, and then we're going to grab our lining fabric and we're going to place it right on top of the zipper. And the fabric and the liner should be right sides together, and we are matching right here at the top edge, so that raw edge. So this is my fabric, my main fabric. I've got my zipper right sides together to my main fabric on that raw top edge, and then I'm gonna put that lining fabric right on top of that, right sides together with the other fabric. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin, but I mean, I'm clipping right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pins. I just don't have them with me right now. And actually pin, because I think it's easier to sew with the pins on this one. I'm gonna make sure that it's lined up everywhere. You know, sometimes when you're cutting fabric, I don't know if I'm the only one, I have a little bit of, you know, I don't cut them all exactly the same, because, you know, you're either doing scissors or rotary cutters, you might move a little bit. Don't worry about that. Once you sew it, then we'll go ahead and trim all the edges before we sew all the way around. So if I get a little bit off, I don't usually worry about it. I just trim it and keep going, because yeah. So I'm gonna go use my zipper foot and sew that on along that edge. On my sewing machine, there is a little tiny, whoop, not that, there's a little jib thingy on the back of my shaft right here, and that's why I pull that forward, and then I'm gonna put my zipper foot in, and if I pull my foot down, it will grab it and latch it on. Now you can do a zipper foot on either side, so there's this side, but you can also latch it onto this side depending on what side of the zipper you're sewing on. I am sewing on, I'm gonna put my zipper on this side, so I wanna use this side of my zipper foot. But if I was going to put my zipper on the other side, I would use this side of the zipper foot. You want the side that's closest to your zipper, so it gives you a nice clean sew. I'm gonna go ahead and sew all the way down. I'm gonna pull it open, and I'm going to just steam that right there. I don't really want to steam where my, you know, my pool, because my other fabric, my waterproof fabric, I don't want to tear, I don't want to melt it or anything. So I'm just kind of steaming it away from the zipper real quickly. And then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine. And again, with my zipper foot, make sure my fabric is taut. I might want to go ahead and use some pins to keep it taut, so when I'm sewing it doesn't just bunch up on me. And I'm gonna top stitch that edge right there, so that when I zipper my bag up, it doesn't catch my my fabric doesn't catch underneath it. So we want to top stitch it away from the zipper. So you're just kind of pulling it away from the zipper as you top stitch it, and kind of just put in a couple pins here and there. I'll probably remove that one, but just so my fabric is stretched out. So let's go do that. Now that that is top stitch, we're gonna repeat the steps again for the other side. So I'm gonna put my outer fabric right up on my board. Then I'm gonna put my zipper, wrong side of my zipper, right on top of it, making sure my fabrics line up. As you can tell right here, I kind of went off already. That's okay. When I sew, I'm gonna make sure I sew it straight so they all fit. And then I'm gonna grab my liner fabric and place it right on top of that. And I'll clip it first, because see how it moves? It is so wiggly. This is why sometimes it's hard to sew with this type of fabric, and this is why you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room and a little bit of extra patience when you're sewing with this kind of fabric. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it win. You win. You know what? At the end is going to look great, because you will just trim any excess that did not work out, and you'll be fine. All right. So we're going to go ahead and sew that zipper on. So now we also steam away from the zipper like we did on the other side, and then we go back and top stitch that down as well. Remember to catch your liner fabric in there as well, so that way it will be pulled out of the way when you're opening and closing that zipper. Let's get our strap ready. You can either make your own strap by folding wrong sides together, steam, and then fold again the two sides in, and then fold it right down the middle to create a strap. and then going over to your sewing machine and top stitching all the way around, or you can use some different kind of webbing or whatever you want to use. I like to use my own handmade handle. I think it looks better. So I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around on my sewing machine. All right, here's my strap and here's my raw edge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my bag. I'm going to grab the liners and the outers together. So outer with outer, liner with liner. I'm going to open my zipper about halfway. And once that's open, well, first of all, I don't want to do that first. First, I want to grab my handle and I'm going to place it about 1 inch away from the edge. And either pin or clip. I'm gonna pin. Couldn't think of the word. Pin, clip, clip, pin. I'm gonna pin it kind of farther in so it stays there. Okay, now I can do that. If you want to go ahead and top stitch that on first, just to make sure that it's not gonna come open on you while you're trying to, move away when you're trying to sew it, you can do that. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew all the way around the 2 liners together, the 2 outers together, right sides together, leaving a gap at your liner where you're gonna turn it all around. So what I want to do too is I want my zipper to be facing towards the pool, towards the liner fabric. So I'm gonna grab it and my tape, I'm gonna fold it, and the back of it, the ends of it are gonna be folding that way. So that way when we sew it, it's kind of squished like that way. I hope that makes sense. And I'm gonna try to line these up as nicely as possible, remembering that it's okay. Let's take our time, try to do it nicely. This fabric is crazy. We're gonna be okay. Alright, so before we turn it, we want to clip those corners, clip all the excess, like if your fabric shifted a little bit, clip it a little bit so it's not super thick. Clip those zippers, the excess right there on both sides. That's why you go over it back and forth so it can get stuck in there, so it's not taking a whole lot of room right there, and that way you can turn it. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and turn it through that gap carefully, and this is where leaving that zipper open comes in handy, because if we didn't leave that zipper open, we'd be stuck now. Okay, before you tuck this in, your liner in, you're gonna go ahead and top stitch right there where you left that gap open. I'm just gonna go over to my sewing machine and top stitch that real quick right there. Just fold the seam allowance in and fold it tight, tell it not to move, and sew it together. And now that that's closed, we're gonna tuck this in. And our bag is done. And how cute is this bag? Look at this. How adorable. Here's your little handle to hold it from. And we are done. Do you love it? I love it. And let me grab the other thing so we can look at the whole set together. Here they are. Adorable. I hope you enjoyed this sewing tutorial. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Come find us on Facebook and Instagram so you can see what everybody else is making and you can be inspired, and then you can inspire everybody else to make beautiful things. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.